Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
What's the scariest small town in America? I've heard stories of places where people just stare at you if they aren't familiar, or places where the sheriff tries to run you out of town. Have any of you had experience been to any of these places? If so, where?
White City, New Mexico. Worst place I've ever been in my life. If you ever go or have been to Carlsbad Caverns, it is the resort town you have to pass through if you are coming from the east. Went to White City with my grandparents when I was about 8. It was nice at that time. About 7 years later, my family, just my mom, dad, sister, and I want to go see Carlsbad Caverns. Grandparents suggest going back to White City to stay at the resort. Mom and dad agree. Take my sister and I. We drive all the way there and realize the place looks closed. The water park, just a pool with 2 slides, has a barbed wire fence around it, no cars but ours there, and the shops all look closed. Dad and I go to check in at the front desk. We expected the door to be locked, but it wasn't. The place wasn't closed. There is a chubby, very friendly looking lady at the desk. Dad starts talking to her. We get our room. As she raises her hand to get our room key off the back wall, we realize she has crab claw hands. You know, the genetic disorder where they just have 2 really big fingers? Yep. I'm about to say something. Dad socks me in the ribs and takes our key and says thank you. We went out to the car. Dad is telling my mom about the lady. Not too weird, right? It's late, so we decided to go to bed. We're laying there at about 11:30 p.m. when someone starts pounding on our door. Dad gets up to go look.
Maintenance.
Dad opens the door and our room immediately fills with the smell of car exhaust.
You need your heater fixed?
No.
Must have been the people above ya.
Ah. Okay. Dad shuts the door and gets back in bed with Mom. It's July. Why would we need our heater fixed? Also, there are no people above us. We're the only people here. Next day, room service shows up. Room service lady has an ankle monitor. We tell her to go away. We go to breakfast and decide to pack up and leave. We'll see the caves but then drive to Roswell. We finally get service. The lady at the register is special. Mom and Dad are trying to order food. The lady says we were supposed to get meal tickets and we were to circle what we wanted and turn them into her. Well, we didn't get any meal tickets. I don't hear exactly what is said, but it ends with the lady at the register screaming uncontrollably at my parents. Manager runs out, takes our order, ushers the lady away. Another family comes in. Hispanic dad and white wife with a son. The dad is talking to his kid in Spanish. The kid is visibly freaked the fuck out. My family knows Spanish pretty well. We lived on the Texas-Mexico border for most of my childhood. Dad looks at the Hispanic guy and asks, in Spanish, what was up with them. The dads start talking in Spanish. The other family was in another building, far from us, but had the maintenance guy show up at about 11:45 asking about heaters as well. And their kid was freaked out because a snake was in their room under a chair when they woke up. Dad starts talking about the ankle monitor lady. She's Hispanic and was behind my dad the whole time. Other family's wife was like,
"Look behind you. Shut up, shish."
Welp, we're the assholes now. Suddenly my sister, who was about 2, started screaming. Mom lifts her shirt. Fucking cluster of wasps on her back. I shit you not. We decide to leave, but first Mom and sister want to shower to wash off her wasp stings and put medication on it. Go back to our room. Before my mom starts to bathe my sister, I notice that the bathtub is really weird. I hadn't really looked at it the night before. You can see sunlight through the plastic. Da fuck? Dad notices. Mom and sister start a bath. Dad and I walked around to the back of the building. We have to hop a fence to get to the back. This is the final straw. We see the back wall of our entire motel building is fucking gone. You can see pipes and bathtubs. The bathtub in the room right next to ours is on the ground. Nope. We ran inside. Dad snatches up my mom and sister and tosses them in the car as I am throwing luggage into the back. Go see caves. Then go to Roswell. Tell some guy in Roswell that we stayed in White City and he laughed hysterically at us and then jokingly, but not totally jokingly said,
"Glad to see you got out alive."
This happened years ago, in a small town called Camden in the state of Maine. It's winter. Just getting off work around 10 p.m. Walking to my car when I see something. It's an old man sitting on a bus bench. He looks to be around his 70s, maybe late 60s. He looked sad and depressed as hell. No buses are scheduled to arrive this late. It's cold and I'm a bit worried, so I sit down next to him. I explain to him that buses aren't running this late, and that he should go inside to get warm. He tells me he needs to go to the next town over. I offer to give him a ride. He only nods and struggles to stand. I help him into the car and turn on the heat for him. He's sniffling and not moving much. I ask him his name and how he's been. He only says the address and nothing else. The address leads to a house in the woods. Down a long, dark, barely snow-shoveled road. Finally get to the normal-looking farmhouse. Lights are on and cars are in the driveway. I pull up as close as I can to the front door for him. He looks up at me for the first time. Tears fill his eyes as he reaches out, planting his hand on my shoulder as he speaks.
"She found someone else."
He then got out of the car and walked to the front door. A middle-aged woman opens the door and waves back at me. They go inside and close the door as I drive away. Being from a small town in Maine, word spreads around pretty quickly. I asked my parents if they had any idea who the guy might have been, but no one I asked had any idea who lived there, only that it was a farm. I have no idea what he meant by that, and I never went back. That was 3 years ago. His words stuck to me for some reason. The way he said it, the deep sadness in his tear-filled eyes, it haunted me for a while.
Woronoco, Massachusetts, located off of Route 20 on the Westfield-Russell border. You wouldn't even know it's there unless you knew to turn off one road, yes, one road into this village, one road out. It's a small riverside community with a couple defunct factories that appear to be meth labs and a dam with a bridge. This is a one-way metal bridge that shakes as you drive over it, and people actually live on the other side, pictured with factory. I'd say about 100 or so people live down in this area. Very, very strange community with only one municipal building, that is their firehouse, town hall, post office and police station. We used to drive out there in college to hike Mount Tioga, and I've seen my fair share of shit. From what appeared to be mobsters or something working behind a rundown factory with new barbed wire, Russian mob owns that town, lights on in the buildings at 2 a.m., strange noises and screams around Mount Tioga, a really strange sheriff that follows you but doesn't approach you. I can go on and on. Woronoco, Massachusetts, fucking strange little place.
International Falls, Minnesota. Technically, there is more activity when you go a bit west, but no one lives over there. All kinds of aliens. Like, if you want to meet some aliens, just go out in the woods over there and do some drugs. I'm not even kidding. I can even take where the aliens like to meet up with me, nearby a hole. And, no, my experience is not special. I mean, I have the most extensive alien contact of anyone I know, but almost everyone has met aliens, ghosts, possessed animals / whatever in those woods. It was one of the last places in the continental USA to be populated by humans. The aliens are there to study the local flora. But the city of International Falls is also a satanic capital of the Western Hemisphere. If you've ever heard of the moral majority, this city is where those heathens had their start. I'm sure that cities like New York actually have more activity because they have such a greater population, but the Illuminati uses those woods as a training ground for super soldiers after their soul has been split via satanic ritual. As much as I'd like to keep ranting about this, I need to get ready for school and maybe do some Tai Chi.
Potrero. It's about an hour drive from San Diego, California. Population 1,200. Rural community. Only one store, one restaurant. No gas station. The sheriff is known to have a drinking and anger problem. Only person who can calm him down is the previous sheriff. The previous sheriff now sells hay. Haunted houses are common since it's an old community. My house property was one of them. There used to be a large area of land owned by one man. They called it Arnold Land. The man had his whole extended family living on that land. They all cooked and used meth. Even the border patrol knew about the property. If they stop you at the checkpoint going into town and you mentioned you lived in Potrero, or anywhere near Arnold Land, your car was getting checked.
Be me. Me and bro. 2 years ago. Stay night in West Wendover. Coming back from Washington. Next day we get up. Instead of taking I-80, we take a detour for fun. Head south. Come upon Gold Hill. Let me go ahead and preface this here now. This area surrounds the Utah Test and Training Range, a big military area in Utah where some chemical weapons testing or something happens. There's lots of reports of scary shit happening at night, horrifyingly mutilated animals, and just general weird fuckery. Gold Hill. More like a trailer trash hill. Literally garbage everywhere. Multiple trailers and RVs. Most broken down. Shirtless dudes staring at us as we drive through. Naked kids playing around in the dirt and garbage. Fat woman walking around looks like she's wearing a garbage bag. One of the shirtless dudes charges my car. Slams his hands and head on my door. Doors locked. JPG. Scared fucking shitless. Slam my pedal. Now I heard and felt the back wheel go over his foot. Look in the rear view mirror. See shirtless dude hopping on one leg holding his foot. See multiple guys and naked kids running towards us. Fucking gun it out of there. Thank fuck for all-wheel drive Subaru. Fucking rally racing down the hills. My brother points out in the mirror that a beat-up ass truck is following us. Hot pursuit. Avi. I don't know how I did it, but my driving skills just elevated right then and there to master level. Next level rally right here. Hit a bump and catch some sweet air. Notice the truck all of a sudden stops following us and turns around. Lost them. PNG. Brother points out something worse. Brother points out a sign on a fence. Military ordnance testing area. Keep out. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Other signs with biohazard, radioactive, and skull with crossbones symbols. Fuck. GIF. Slow down and stop at gate. Can see train containers, radio towers, and buildings in the distance. There's a long stretch of road running along the fence. Decide to follow it going south. Swear to fuck. We see the biggest dog in our life run across the road and hop the fence. Could tell it was a dog, like a Labrador or something, like the size of a grizzly bear. Watch it run further into the military area, eventually gets out of sight. Shit gets weirder. Start hearing jets. Look in the sky, but we can't see any flying. Yet they sound like they're just overhead. We keep driving. We see 3 helicopters going north, hauling ass. Brother swears he hears an explosion in the distance. We book it down the road, going like over 80 miles per hour the entire way. Eventually ended up in the small farm town of Calo. Ask farmers for directions back to civilization. Before we leave, he asks us where we've been. Tell him about the crazies up on Gold Hill. He doesn't look surprised, jests that they're a bunch of inbreeders. Tell him about the big dog. He seriously tells us that's best thing out there we could have encountered, implies that there's worse. Says the military drills are normal. Gives us directions to Delta. We thank him and carry on. I'm never going back to that part of this damned state again.
Staring at you as if you were an alien is pretty common. I've had that happen in little towns in Italy as well as through the US. I remember once I went into a little roadside diner along Route 66, a place straight out of the 1950s, and I didn't even make it through the door. As I was pushing it open, every head turned in the place. Only a handful of locals plus the aging waitress, all original interiors, but beaten and run down, a marker board for a menu, and I literally backed out of the place and got back in my car and left.
My fiancé and I had an experience like this. Live in a ruralish area near the edge of town. Decide to drive a bit further north to better see the stars. Stop in the next town up with a population of like 30. After stargazing, we decided to buy a drink. Find a gas station near the freeway. Pretty dead, but the lights are on and the doors open. Only person inside is one cashier. There was maybe one display of snacks and only one case of non-alcoholic beverages. The rest of the store is the wall of beer, dozens of knives and some bongs, including one made out of a gas mask. We selected a Coke and paid. Cashier never said a word, just stood still and watched us. Not a bad experience all in all. We still chuckle about it and have been back to the town many times since. The people there are pretty friendly.
Lots of odd small towns in West Virginia and far western Maryland. Hell, there is even a town named Accident in Garrett County, Maryland. I have a lot of friends who are truck drivers and have seen some pretty weird shit. They've seen robed figures walking alone in the woods miles and miles from any houses, have had locals stare at them while standing in their front yards as if they were waiting for something to happen, and seen hairy humanoid figures watch them from the woods at night. New Mexico has some of the weirdest places from what I've heard. Shitty, run-down truck stops filled with perverts and occult graffiti written on stall doors. One friend even had several tarantulas rush him while on the shitter. He managed to stomp them and smash the others with a small hammer he carries with him. He's also seen odd lights in the skies at night and was tried to be stopped by dirty, inbred-looking people on the highway late at night.
Fucking Dudleytown, Connecticut. Never been there. Apparently it's heavily patrolled. A lot of lore surrounds the town dating back to the Revolutionary War and the founding of the colonies. The town's founders supposedly brought a family curse over from England. A lot of people dying, losing their minds, being struck by lightning. Some guy lost his entire family to various strange misfortunes and one day walked into the woods never to be seen again. There are also stories about a shapeless black thing in the woods. I wonder what native tribes thought of the land before the colonists got there. There's this distinctly American fear of treading upon some ancient burial ground, but I think what's creepier is when tribes avoid the land altogether. When some place has been recognized as off or wrong for a long time.
Been there before. Can confirm the heavy patrols. Everyone just looked either depressed, terrified, confused, angry, all of the above, or a mix of the four. From what I've seen the few times I've passed by there, nearly all the kids are constantly inside at all times, and the few kids that were out looked normal at first, but you could somehow tell that something's wrong. Same goes for everyone else. The only people that even seem to be normal are the cops. The place is terrifying just to look at, but even more so once inside.
No mentions of odd, West Virginia and the Whitaker family who lives there. They supposedly inspired the movie Wrong Turn. The town is so secluded that they inbred and now they're all nutcases. They walk on all fours like dogs and grunt and bark to communicate. When you drive by them, they'll chase your car and throw rocks, sticks, or even feces at you. Supposedly there are 4 of them. Older, cross-eyed, bald, toothless guy, he typically does the shooting. Younger son with stunted limbs who shambles around like a fucking zombie, literally named Chicken Nugget. Other son will literally run on all fours at your car and bark and throw shit at you. Rumors that their neighbors take care of them and won't hesitate to get involved if you decide to mess with them.
Helltown, Ohio is like this. I don't know if Helltown is just a nickname, but it's what it's called. It's near me and there are a few places people say are haunted. Me and some friends went there a while back to ghost hunt, smoke pot a reportedly super haunted place called Crybaby Bridge, and didn't even make it there. A cop, probably the only one even working at the time, pulled us over because he'd never seen our car before and it was suspicious. He basically made a big thing about intimidating us and we left after that.
There's a town called Hurley in Virginia, in Buchanan County. If you drive through there and they don't recognize your car, the whole town calls each other and they go out and stand on their front porches and stare at you. The reason is because they think you're with Child Protective Services and they want to see which pillhead's baby is getting confiscated today, but it's still creepy. Hasty, Virginia isn't as bad, but it's similar. If you go into a store or restaurant, everyone interacts with you the absolute bare minimum they have to. They don't say anything to you, not even the obligatory, thank you. Servers will just drop your food on the table and leave. When I lived in Appalachia, I was cautioned by the locals never to go to Jolo, West Virginia.
Holy fuck, this thread is so relevant to me right now. I live in Ireland. 2 days ago. First day of college. End of the day, my bus home never arrives. Start walking long country roads home. Never actually been to this area of the country. Over a 4-hour walk home. About 6 kilometers outside the town, Dunboyne, I get on top of a hill by the road. Decide to cut through the small town I see for something to drink, maybe catch my breath. Cut through the field to reach town. Come across a ditch with a small bridge. Comfy.jpg. Looking around, in the shade from a sunny day, so this spot was so lovely. Notice something on a tree. It's a fucking pentagram. Breath at a dead badger. Oh, for fuck's sake.jpg. Immediately head into the village. Small, one pub, a post office and a shop. It's pretty rural. Some old women standing in front of houses stare as I pass. Think nothing of it, but some men and a few kids watch me as I progress down a street. Enter shop. Odd elderly man welcomes me but watches everything I do in the shop. Ask him about any potential bus routes through town. No. Fuck. Really anxious, so I don't stop to rest, buy some water, and make my way down the road further until some guy stops his car and offers me a ride. Accept because I'm pretty sick of the heat. Asks if I went through the village. Answer yes, and he says thank goodness he came across me. Says never walk alone through there again. Explain the bus didn't come. We chat for a while before reaching main roads again. He drops me at a bus stop. Reminds me to avoid the village. Okay. Bus arrives. Go home. Shitpost about shit bus service.
I'm going to tell a creepy thing that happened to my family as a kid. It's going to be boring and read like shit, so I'm giving you warning. This happened in the small town of South River, and it's nice town, but what happened was insane. Going up to my cottage with the family in the summer. It's only 5 hours north, so we go as often as we can, and it feels just like a second home to me and my sister, ages 5 and 11. So the 4 of us make it up there, and it's about 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. Start unpacking and we find a tree knocked out the power. Not really an issue. We stay the night and in the morning we will figure things out. Morning comes and my dad drives into town, use and phone to call the hydro company. When he gets back he tells us that they will come to fix it in a week. We were planning on staying 2 weeks, so my dad asked everyone if we wanted to stay. Everyone wants to stay despite not having electricity to run the water pump from the lake to flush the toilets or wash. I'm sitting in the sun outside playing my Game Boy when some dude that looked around 25-ish and clearly a local asks for my dad. I run and get him and he talks with my dad about how he can fix that power lines. My dad tells him that it's illegal and crazy to mess with it and that he's called Hydro One and they're going to come fix it. This dude gets almost childlike and starts to tell him about how he works as a contractor and stuff. My dad tells him to leave and he seemingly drives off. We go about our day as normally as we could and we went into town to get some fresh water and food. When we get back, the dude's truck in the drive is parked and he's got a ladder trying to remove the tree. My dad flips his shit and start yelling at him to get the fuck down and get out of here. They yell back and forth for about a minute with me, my mom and sister still in the car and it's running. I can't really see from the car but I hear a loud bang like the resistor popped. The dude got shocked and was on the ground. This all happened at South River, Ontario. The dude's friend hops out of his truck, rushes over before my dad can get to him and starts doing CPR or trying to. As I see my dad walk over to them, he yells at us to stay in the car hoping that we wouldn't get to see it. My mom tells us not to look and my sister and I look away. The dude's friend lifts him into the truck and kicks off the dust pulling out. My dad gets back into the car and tells us that he got a shock and will be okay and that he's going to the hospital, which is like an hour drive away. Everyone being a little spooked and me being sure that he was dead, we make dinner. After they put my sister to bed, my dad told me what really took place and how the man was dead. We talked about it and how that's why you shouldn't mess with stuff like that and how the locals are crazy, while my mom is hugging me because I was a little upset. I fell asleep on the couch across from the window that night in the living room. My dad was sleeping on the couch next to me. Pick is my cottage. In the dead of night, I wake up to what sounded like someone walking on the deck just outside the window doors. I assume it's my dad or mom and go back to sleep. Wake up to it again. This time it is on the other side of the house. I still think it's mom or dad. Hear the door handle shake and boom. I'm in full alert mode and I think to myself I should see if my parents and sister are here. Try to wake my dad by shaking him, but he is a deep sleeper and won't wake. Full alert mode, me stumbles into where my mom and sister are sleeping and finds both. My heart start pounding to the point where it's all I can hear and I can't think straight. Run up to my dad sleeping still and shaking him awake while yelling someone is trying to get it. He gets up thinking I had a nightmare and tells me it's probably just an animal. I tell him I heard the doorknob. This time he gets up and turns on the porch light, yawns and tells me it's just windy. Convinced of this, I go back to trying to sleep. I rolled over so that I'm facing the sliding glass windows. It's very dark and overcast, so no moon. Hear the footsteps again and listen really carefully and I start to see something moving. A ghost white face pops up on the window. I'm so scared I can't even move. I just lay staring at it for what felt like an hour. The face looks around and backs away into the darkness. The face comes back again in a different window, this time closer. Just as I work up never to move again, a loud bang hits the window. I wake my dad up and looks at me and says, "Why the fuck are the porch lights working?" We both look at each other. Then a bang, my mom rushes in and my dad turns the porch light on and the crazy dude that we all thought was dead fixed the power for us after he got back from the hospital. He told us sorry for what took place and that he was a real electrician. And that not to worry about the bill, he's got it covered. The rest of week went great. but we will probably never trust a local or stay at our cottage ever again.
There's a town my parents lived in for a bit called Bozeat. Move in. See a rabbit's foot in the wardrobe. Think nothing of it. Neighbors are a bit odd and keep to themselves. Nothing much happens for a while. Get woken up one night by some intense revving. Look out the window to see a huge gang of Hell's Angels revving their bikes and zooming up and down the street. Some other weird shit happens after that. Move out. The day after they move out, they see a newspaper headline in the store. Witch sex cult in Bozeat, or something like that.
Brattlebro, Vermont, has some creepy shit in it. East Brat Woods are haunted. There's a tower across the street from the retreat mental facility that's supposedly haunted. The locals are weird as hell, and I'm not talking about the artsy folk or the gangbangers. Lots of weird stories coming out of the Latches Theater. Head there soon though, it's going downhill since the protesters shut down the power plant. The town's economy is down the drain, businesses are moving away, families who have lived there for generations can't live there anymore because of the skyrocketing taxes.
UK here, interested in American small villages. Been Googling the shit out of all these ones mentioned. They give me the heebie-jeebies, lads. In the UK, any small town will be no more than 10 minutes from somewhere bigger. The apparent lawlessness, a lack of civilization, of some of the places mentioned here is amazing. The USA is so massive. Must be great to live somewhere where you can explore weird places and cut off isolated towns.
It's great until you accidentally end up in a town you really shouldn't be in, and if you can't get out fast enough or be careful enough, you'll get absolutely fucked and be terrified that the least worst thing that can happen to you is dying. I've passed by and around many small, almost isolated, towns before. Whenever I had to go on cross-country trips from Florida to California and Washington to visit old friends, and the stay away type towns are seriously fucked and corrupt beyond belief. I remember that somewhere between Texas and Washington, I was with my wife and we had to pull in at a local town since one of my wheels blew out, and not even 2 seconds outside of our car we're getting assaulted by criminals until I pulled out my gun and they hauled ass. The townspeople were looking at us with ominous stares the entire time, and the town sheriff tried to arrest me with false charges of illegal possession of a firearm. Even though I had a license that I showed him, which would have left my wife alone and vulnerable. Unless I know the town well, I always avoid them because of experiences like that. Of course, most small towns are okay, but for the few that aren't, it's not even worth the risk of going near them.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.